when we first started covering Cheer Incorporated, the cheer scandal, I've spoken with a lot of survivors. And each of their stories has been impactful to me. That it's impacted me as a mom, as a human, as a de facto journalist, because I still consider myself a researcher. But I remember the day that I got a call from who I now consider one of my closest friends. And she said, I just wanted to reach out to you and introduce myself. And she told me about herself, who she was. And she told me her story. And we kept talking. We talk almost every day still. And about a week ago, she called me and said, I think I'm ready to come forward and tell my story to the world. I think people need to hear my story. I think it's important that people know my story, and I'm ready. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud to be a part of this day.
Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, and I'm going to let her tell you her name.
Yep. So, my introduction I kind of wrote out, but then we'll just talk about some of the other details and points and everything afterwards. So,
What, you're ready?
Yeah. So, first of all, I just want to thank you for everything. You, like Will, Jen, Bakari, Dylan, Allie, Amy, Mario, Jessica, all of you have been the most amazing support system. Such a good support system that you have become family. And you've helped us. You've helped all of us survivors be able to tell our stories throughout this incredibly unimaginable life experience. And every single victim, survivor, however, like I said in one of my columns, however you want to label us as, every single one of them have been so strong, and I applaud their strength. Not everyone has come forward. Some anonymously told their stories, but didn't want to be in the public eye. And both are 100% okay. And perfectly understandable, and there is absolutely zero shame in any position that you want to take. Sorry. I was almost one of those people that didn't come forward until I heard about a certain fact. And it was a done deal for me. I was on the phone with Bakari within like 20 minutes. So starting out, I am Jane Doe 6 in South Carolina. And I am no longer going to be Jane Doe 6. My name is Victoria. So there's that. And I'm not here to shame anyone, to degrade anyone, to pretend to be a judge or law enforcement, or to prosecute people. I'm here to talk about how this has changed our lives. Our relationships, our ability to trust, and the outlook on life just in general. So let's start with this topic, what this has stolen from me and others that I've had the honor of speaking to. Anyone who knew me knew how passionate I was about cheerleading. And in high school, I was on two squads.
How old were you when you started cheerleading?
I think I was 13, and that's kind of a funny story because I didn't make the team, but then the very next year, I was the only freshman to make varsity for a team that had just won state championship. People didn't like that.
Come back in.
There were a lot of gossip. So, but I mean, that's what happened. So I remember my mom telling me, she was like, I don't think they realized I was your mom, and I heard the other mothers talking. So, oh well. But everyone knew I was passionate, like very passionate about the sport. I fell in love. And like I said, I was on 2 squads. One was high school, one was all-star. And I trained 6 days a week. And the only reason why it wasn't 7 was because the gym was closed on Saturdays. Because otherwise it probably would have been 7. My poor mom, she probably the times she had driving me back and forth. Bless her heart. Thanks, Mom. But I loved the sport. But the key word in that sentence was loved.
It was a big part of your life for a long time.
A very long time, yeah. So, I mean, it was my life.
And you cheered in college?
Yes. I cheered at University of Louisville and at Clemson. So, yeah, I mean, I miss it. But what I think I miss the most is I miss the fact that I respected it and loved it, and now it's changing with everything that's... I have my experiences that I know, and I'm hearing about all these other experiences. Some that I suspected, some that I had no idea about. And it's hard to say that it's shocking, but at the same time it's not.
Yeah.
Because I knew, I did know a lot, and we all just kept our mouths shut.
So what happened to you happened, I think, 18 years ago.
18 years ago. Well, yeah. It started at the age of 16, 17, and 18.
So you've been living with us for 18 years.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What changed for you? What made you decide it was time to come forward?
So, with permission from one Jane Doe and me being a Jane Doe, I was connected to somebody and realized I knew them. And our stories were so exactly the same. I was on my way to work, and when we were talking, and I pulled over, and I ended up, like, I was on the highway, and I ended up having to pull over and throw up, and got back behind the wheel, started going back to work, and a couple minutes later, I threw up again. So that was, like, part of it. I am the person who's been writing those columns that y'all have been publishing. I've written 3 of them. And after, I think it was after my 3rd one, is when Varsity responded.
They finally released their statement.
Yeah, yeah. And they started off with saying, oh, we're behind these, there's survivors, we're supporting them, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. But then halfway into the article, it said something like, but we're going to support these people and blah, blah, and, and I'm not saying every single coach is, a perpetrator. And so I know they're probably meaning that they're going to protect the people who didn't do anything, but that was kind of insulting to me.
Right.
I did not like the way that was said. It's like, but, and I'm like, so wait, there's no but in this situation. Right. This is a problem.
Right.
And it needs to be addressed. And we need to that needs to be your focus. And if you feel like you need to protect somebody, you can do that, but you don't need to put that in like the article.
That doesn't need to be a part of your statement.
Yeah, that's unnecessary. Like that's the part that kind of, that was like, wait a second.
That's when you said, we're done here. I'm ready.
Yeah, that's when I decided I'm ready to be the first Jane Doe to speak out and not be a Jane Doe anymore.
I remember that phone call.
Yeah. And I was fired up.
It was indeed the first time that I felt like I felt your fire. I felt your confidence. Mm-hmm. I felt that. Yeah. And I was proud of you. And very excited, because I think it's important for people to see you, to see who this is affecting.
Yeah. Because there's so many. Mm-hmm. And that's actually when I first came out and spoke to Bakari.
And his team.
Yeah. When I found out how many, because I didn't realize the magnitude. And I didn't even know if my story would be a story. Like, I mean, I did for certain parts of it, but not for others.
Right.
And when I started telling him details, and he knew immediately that they were matching details of other stories, such as taking people across state lines. One thing that you witnessed yesterday, the white bottle cap with G in it, and us not realizing it was the date rape drug.
Right.
And all you did was give me a water bottle, and I looked down, and I had the white cap in my hand, and I tossed it. And you kind of looked at me funny, and I was like, it's the cap. And 18 years later, it's something as little as a cap.
Right.
From a water bottle.
And it's things people don't think about.
Yeah. And I didn't even anticipate it
right.
until it was in my hand and I looked down at it.
And you've given me personally, as I'm covering the story and writing, a lot of insight into things that people don't understand that changed, that, we talked about your Facebook memories.
Yeah. I did a screenshot. I sent it to you. And, there was a picture that, has popped up on Facebook memories multiple times. And I always look back on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that picture. I remember that day. This past time,
I saw somebody in the background that you hadn't noticed before.
Yeah. Kenny Feely was in it. And one of the things is that from the beginning, Bakari told me to start journaling, because memories are going to come back that you have suppressed, that you're not going to remember immediately. You're not going to remember everything. And so, I remember the basic memories of a lot of this stuff, because it wasn't just one occasion. There were multiple occasions. And one of the occasions, there were multiple people. It was the night I was drugged, given the date rape drug. And I knew there were other guys there, and I just couldn't place their faces. I couldn't remember. And all of a sudden, it hit me. Because my dad asked me, he was like, how do you know Scott? How do you know Kenny? And I remember how I knew Scott, but I was like, how did I meet Kenny? How did I meet Kenny? And I was like, oh my gosh. It was the same night I met Scott.
Right.
And that's the night that they gave me the date rape drug.
And probably if another survivor hadn't come forward with her story about Kenny, that name wouldn't have come up. It wouldn't.
I don't think I would have realized it. Yeah, it's triggers, and that's
right.
Like the brain. Because I'm a nurse, the brain protects itself. It's miraculous the way it does certain things, and sometimes that's why people will not remember trauma, and I could remember certain people that were there that night, but I couldn't place. I knew there were more, but I couldn't remember. And when Kenny's name came out, I was like, oh my God. I was surprised, kind of. But then it all of a sudden hit me. That was one of the faces I was missing. That's when I met him, and they were like buddy. So it makes sense. I was like, it totally makes sense. That it was definitely him.
Right.
So,
I mean, those memories are, people click on them and smile and look, and it hadn't occurred to me that a lot of times you click on those memories and there's trauma behind them.
yeah, because it was literally just a couple weeks ago that I realized it was Kenny, and then that memory popped up on my Facebook page, and I was like, I used to love that picture, and now I never want to see it again.
Right.
So, another memory, we my high school team, we cheered, and my dad would do the end of the year videos, and he was so good at it. He was wonderful at it. And my mom would help, my brother, my sister, like they all like strategically would like place cameras and get different angles, and they were so supportive. And one of my favorite, I wanted to watch one of our end of the year videos. It was about 2 weeks ago, just to remind me of the good times. That one time I loved the sport. I did. And I just wanted to see the good memories. And I loved watching it up until the regional championship. And we were walking off the floor, and you see my mom cheering. But you see one of the perpetrators that I had to deal with standing right next to her.
And he wasn't even a coach of that team. There was no reason for him to be there.
No,
there was nothing that made sense for him to be there standing next to your mother as your team was stepping off the floor.
Except for the fact that me.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the only reason I.
And you probably didn't even notice it before.
I didn't notice it until I watched it the other week, and I got so angry that I turned it off and couldn't even finish watching it.
Yeah.
I started crying, and it's like every time I turn around, someone's stealing another piece of my happiness that I used to look back on and love and enjoy, and it just, pieces are just being torn from me right now, and it's hard, and it's hard to listen to the other survivors and their stories. I wasn't even able to read our filing. I got through John Doe 1, and that was it. I had to stop reading. I had to have someone else help me read parts of it, even they couldn't get through it. And then I ended up having a good friend. He read the rest of it for me.
It's different reading it, even for me, knowing you.
Yeah.
When I first read it, I hadn't met you yet, and I read through it and I looked at the details. And then I read through it when they filed the amendment, and I knew you well at that point, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
It's
nothing. It's not. It's hard to describe.
Nobody should ever have to go through that kind of thing.
No.
So, but yeah.
You told me when you listen to the podcast, you like listening to it, but it takes you a few days because you have to do it in sections.
Yeah, I listen to every single one of them, and they're inspiring, and they help me grow, but they're hard, and I have yet to listen to a single podcast in one sitting. I usually have to pause about 3 or 4 times. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I scream. Sometimes, like, I've punched my mattress because I don't want to punch anything that's going to hurt my hand or, break anything. I'm not that violent. But yeah, like, I've punched my pillow, my mattress, and just, like, screamed and cried because I'm just like, this is...
And we always have a
not okay.
conversation on the day before, so I can give you a heads up about what we talk about.
And I always appreciate that.
But I mean, it's still hard hearing these stories and knowing how it's affecting you.
The most recent one, I had a friend with me, and I got the text, and that said, this was just released last night or tonight. And he was literally trying to hold on to me as I was crying because he was just felt so bad because I was so, it was so, it's hard to process. And, yeah, I paused it and started pacing the room. And it was just, you could just tell,
Right.
you could see the emotions that I was going through. And I kept apologizing to him. And he was like, stop saying sorry. Like, it's okay. Like, this, like, if you don't want...
You and I have had this conversation because you're like, I'm sorry, I'm crying. And
everyone keeps telling me to...
Please cry. Like, tell me, like, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
And you're not the only one that I've spoken to who's a survivor of this, who is apologizing for their feelings. Like, you don't know, like, it's hard. It breaks because it's okay to cry. I've cried. Mm-hmm. This is hard.
It is. It is. And the only reason, because I'm sure people are going to question, like, why didn't she come forward before? First of all, I was a kid. I was 16, 17, 18. I know legally 18 is an adult. Let's all look back at what we were doing when we were 18 years old, for God's sakes.
Right.
Even at 25, we still were all idiots. Let's face it.
I know.
Some people are still idiots even at like 40.
44.
There are patients I take care of, and I'm like, let me call my child because even she can tell you how to do this better.
You're living
get your life
wrong.
together.
Let's get it
together. But yeah, I didn't say anything. I was a kid. So I was scared. And I had a whole I had this whole plan for a cheer career to come forward.
You were looking at college cheer
scholarships. At the #1 program in the nation. I was being, my dad went to University of Kentucky to talk to their athletic director because I was going to their spring camps every year. And so they were kind of recruiting me. Before I even tried out for Louisville, I was told by my coach, he sat down next to me when I was still a senior, and he goes, just so you know, you made Louisville today. I was like, wait, what? I was like...
I didn't try out yet, though.
Yeah. But, he spoke to the coach and said, told him about me, and not necessarily did I actually make the team, but definitely, I guess, he, said
knew
that
it would be a high probability.
Yeah.
Has this affected you and how you parent, do you think?
Absolutely. People ask me all the time because they knew how passionate I was about cheerleading. If I'm going to put my kids in cheerleading? Absolutely not. No way. One of them plays tennis and likes to work out at the gym, and I make sure that she's 100% that either her dad or myself are with her. The other one's more an artistic type of person, so she doesn't she's not sporty, but yeah, it definitely, I'm very much try to be aware. And like one of them changed their passcodes on their phone. I was like, oh no, ma'am.
That's not how we're going to work
Yeah.
this.
I'm going to monitor all the things. So, I'm definitely try to make sure that I'm aware of things that are going on in their life. And I want them to feel safe to talk to me about it too. So one of them, they were having a hard time, and I found out, and I literally took her on a vacation, and it was just her and I. And there was no pressure for her to talk, but I wanted her to know, like, this is supposed to be fun, but if at any moment you want to talk about this situation, I'm here. And we did. We had a couple of conversations, but at the same time, we were able to have fun. So it kind of took the ease off of it so that she could feel like she could open up a little bit more easily versus like being sat down and like, what's going on?
Right.
So, and I dropped everything that week for her. I was like, all bets are off. Called my work. I'm like, not coming in.
We got family things we gotta work through.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely, like, because I understand when, like, trauma is at that age, because
Right.
she is 16.
Right.
So, and that's when mine started. So hers isn't the same, but still, trauma is trauma.
Right.
So.
And it affects you.
Yeah. So, yeah. So.
I think one thing you and I have spoken about that you're very passionate about, and it isn't something that I thought about in a lot. I mean, it's something that had occurred to me, but I hadn't thought about it in as much depth until you and I started discussing it. But it's the age of consent.
Absolutely. I think because that's one of the reasons why I didn't come forward, because back then when this happened for me, there was a lot of pressure about, well, did you say no? Like that was,
Did the word no come out of your mouth?
Yeah. And if it didn't, then, it wasn't clear whether or not you were giving consent. So if you didn't actually say no, then it was like, well, it was kind of blown off. But the age of consent, at the age of 16, you know nothing. Like, you know what sex is.
Right.
But for someone in their 30s to have sex with someone who's 16 and give, like, I mean, I made sure that person knew that I was uncomfortable. I gave 3 excuses of why I didn't want to do it. But did I say the word no? I didn't. And 16's way too young, because that you're putting that female in a position of becoming a 16-year-old mother.
Right.
And that whatever 20, 30-year-old man might just completely disappear, and all of a sudden that 16-year-old, as they're left with doing that on their own. And like, hopefully they can get through high school. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they'll go to college eventually.
I mean, we both have daughters that are 16, and I look at her now and I'm like, this isn't a decision she should be allowed to make.
Yeah, no.
It's not a decision
not
somebody that's substantially older than her and is in a position of power over her.
Right, especially with the power part.
Right. Should be pushing on her.
Yeah. So when it's someone like a coach, a teacher, someone who has like a certain type of power over you, that makes you scared to not say no.
Right.
So you find other ways to say it.
Right.
Beat around the bush. but because don't say no like they would back in the day. I feel like it's changing.
Yeah, I do. I definitely think the concept of consent and non-consent have changed.
I think it's improved.
Right.
But I think the age needs to change.
I agree.
Let me change that. Not think. I know the age needs to change.
Right.
So if you're not old enough to vote, if you're not old enough to drink, but you're old enough to have sex and have a baby possibly.
Right.
There's no sense in that.
Right.
No sense.
And then we're putting these kids in the position of saying, well, did I say no? Did I give any indication that I wasn't comfortable, that this wasn't something I agreed to? I mean, they're trying to make that decision.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, as an adult, I would struggle with that. I would. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to say no when it's that type of scenario.
That's one of the conversations that I've had, and she's probably going to be not happy that I'm telling the story. But it's after this, I said, we need to talk, and I want you to start thinking about, if you're ever in a situation where you're uncomfortable, what words will you use?
Yeah.
I want you to say them out loud, because it's not going to feel natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, because you freeze.
Right.
And you start like stuttering and trying to figure out what can I say.
Thinking of an excuse.
Yep.
Which is
exactly what I did.
Yeah, I want you to just start thinking out loud the words you would use, and I want you to say them out loud. You don't have to do it with anybody around, but I want you to know what those words sound like coming out of your mouth, so that if you ever have to use them, you're confident in them, and you're not struggling to find them.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? This actually just came to my mind as we're talking. All high schools have sex ed. Mm-hmm. I think that should be part of the education.
Right.
And it might be for certain programs. I don't know. I was never taught that, but it would be good for, and it's not just girls, it's boys too.
It's anybody. It's just, when you're in a situation where you're not sure how you would respond, start thinking about the words that you would use.
Yeah,
even if it's like somebody offers you drugs or alcohol and you're not interested, what will you say to them?
Right.
My kid's like, I'm just going to say I don't do that, but say it out loud.
Yeah.
And make sure that is what you're going to say.
Yeah. Practice knowing. Teach kids, and like parents do it too.
Right.
But like it could be part of sex ed classes as well.
Right.
So that it's reinforced. Like, what would you say if you're in an uncomfortable situation? Right. And back then it was just like, say no. Mm-hmm. That's not enough.
Right. Right.
Right. There's got to be.
And it's, more to it. I struggle with that as well, in terms of why are we putting this responsibility on the kids? Because it's our responsibility as adults to identify these signs and identify
exactly,
and to know what to look for. But I do think also you need to empower your kids and let them think about it. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that I ever thought about until you and I started speaking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I started teaching my kids about the no-no zones and stuff like that very young.
Right.
And then, as they got older and we kind of...
had to adjust no longer the conversation depending on their age. Yeah, exactly. So it's just something that I think everybody should be aware of and think about and advocate for, because it does vary from state to state as well.
It does,
which is confusing.
It should, and it shouldn't be like that. No. Like one state is consent of 16, and another one's 18.
Especially when you're going over state lines with.
When they're taking you,
right?
I was taken over state line.
So
and Scott Foster bought the Rockstar House in North Carolina.
Right. So is there?
So he was taking kids from South Carolina to North Carolina. And I don't know what the ages are.
I don't know if there's a difference, but I know it varies.
Yeah.
And I think that's concerning. I think
Yeah.
it's hard, and it's already confusing for.
Like he took
He knew.
people he never. I don't even know if he ever did it in South Carolina. He might have.
He might have.
But
that's part of the grooming process is isolating.
Because when I was taken over state lines, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't get out. I was stuck.
Where are you going to go?
Yeah.
They're your ride.
Yeah. So.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Do you, I know there's been, we talk about it, like weights, like certain things are, okay, that's done. Okay. I feel a little lighter. Are there parts of this process that you think have been particularly difficult?
Yeah. So this is the hardest one for me. Because I was asked about one of the perpetrators and whether or not they abused me.
At the time it was happening?
Shortly after.
Right.
I don't remember exactly how long. And I lied. I said, no, that's just a rumor. And this person was concerned. And they asked me again. And I lied again. Because I was scared. And I look back now. And I wonder, what if I just would have told the truth? Because that was 18 years ago. And maybe 18 years worth of kids being abused might not have happened. And that kills me to think about. And I know I can't save the world. But even if it just would have saved one.
I think as moms we try.
Yeah.
We do keep talking about this over and over, that
one hurts.
Yeah.
And I think about it ever since this had happened.
Do you think that's part of why you're here?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was the day when I found out that there were over 100 people who have called in. That was it for me. I called Bakari. So that made me sick to my stomach. And yeah, it's just something that I know it's not my fault. I know that. But as human, it's hard to not think about it.
Right.
So.
Are you surprised that more people aren't talking about this?
No, because it's a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. It took me 18 years.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the ones who are younger, who are doing it now. Like, good for them. Like, they deserve a pat on the back because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But that's another reason why I want to do this, so that I can be there for them and help them walk through the process as well.
I think you said this in your first article that you wrote for us, that you feel like you're kind of building your own team.
Yeah. Our own squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we all...
survivors and support system.
Yeah. So...
it made me smile. I was like, yeah.
Like, we all started this sport with our squads, but now we're becoming our own squad. And I, hope if there's anybody else out there right now that hasn't come forward, is questioning coming forward, I hope that they know that they have a squad behind them, and more than a squad of family. So I will hold everybody's hand, whoever needs it. So
You're adorable. You're just such a good person. I'm proud to know you.
Oh, thank you. But you are too. My gosh, you like answer every single phone call whenever I call you. I'm like, I'm having another breakdown.
Come on, let's breathe. We got this.
Right?
But I've met some of the most incredible people. I mean, it stinks. This is horrible, but
it's awful.
But I also feel like it's brought a lot of people together and given people support, and probably you don't need, like, this will go out, and I think you're going to be helping people, a lot of people.
I hope so, because the thing that I've learned as it's manifested, I read about, someone developing some mental disorders.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, my anxiety I've developed a muscle spasm, which luckily it hasn't happened while we've recorded yet. Where's wood? But they get so intense sometimes that it looks like I have Tourette's I actually have, I think I slipped a disc in my neck, and my doctor wants me to go see an orthopedic, because when I press on a certain spot, like, shooting pain goes down, and it's because the spasm is so intense. It's not just like a little twitch. Like, I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's like full blown, like looking like I just got electrocuted type of thing. So, some people have just completely, lost respect for sex due to it, mm-hmm. and just do whatever they want with their sex lives.
Changes your approach to relationships.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have yet to have a healthy relationship ever since. All of my relationships have pretty much been toxic, and it's I've been happily single for 8 years.
Really happy with that decision.
People are like, "Are you divorced or married?" I'm like, "Happily divorced, thank you."
Very happy about it, and don't ever feel like you need to apologize. I'm in a good place with that.
So, but yeah, it's everyone's dealing with it in different ways, mm-hmm. and I don't even know some of the ways, because I don't know everybody. I only know one person that I've actually connected with because I actually knew them. But all the other Jane Does, John Does, like, I don't know who they are.
Right.
So, and that's fine. Like, you don't need to come out with your identity unless you're ready.
Right.
So, but I just hope that all of them are doing what they can to take care of themselves. Like, I started seeing a therapist, and even though I'm in the medical field, I've tried to see a therapist because of my past relationships that were toxic.
Right.
And I would get like 2 or 3 sessions in. I'm like, this is stupid. Like,
right.
Because they would ask me the same questions. So how does that make you feel? I'm like, well, I mean, how do you think it makes me
not
feel?
Not real great. That's why we're here.
So, but I've recently started talking to one that was, she's good.
She gets the trauma, the post-traumatic stress, the trauma, what you're dealing with.
Oh yeah, she's great. So, and the fact that I even came to the point that I was like, all right, enough's enough. I need therapy.
It is time. And I'm probably going to have to answer that question. How does that make you feel?
Well, I actually told her, I was like, just don't ask that one question. I was like, I'll tell you what everything makes me feel if I want to. Just don't ask it.
No, don't put that on me.
It's funny. So, but yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to tell people about you, about your experience?
So, something that I started doing on my own, because I told you I was started seeing a therapist, but I started doing this. No one recommended it to me. I was in the shower one day, and the walls of my shower just steamed up, and all of a sudden I just wrote the word stronger. And that's all I wrote on the first day. And because that was the day I came forward with Bakari. And the next day I added brave. And then I started to add courage, not alone, fearless, fighter, breathe. And I literally do it every single day.
So finding those little moments in your day where you can remind yourself.
Yeah. And it's the day I actually started doing it, I got out of the shower and I like almost kind of started having a panic attack. And the shower was off, and I wrapped a towel around me, and I was gonna get ready and get dressed, but then for some reason I went back into the shower and I sat there for 2 hours, and like, because everything was just like hitting me, and finally I realized 2 hours passed, and I was like, I'm gonna have to call out of work. Yikes. But then I turned the shower back on, and that's when I wrote brave.
I remember you told me when you saw it in the mirror.
Yeah.
The way it reflected it the right way.
Yeah. So I was, because if you turn around, if you get out of the shower and look at it, it's written backwards. So, but then I turned around and looked in the mirror, and I could see all the words.
So while you're getting ready for your day, those
I
words
can still see it
behind you.
Yeah. So, and it's so silly, but
Nothing silly if it's helping.
Oh my gosh, it does. It means the world to me, and I might even walk into court with a shirt that says all of those words.
I will make it. We'll all have them on.
Yeah. So,
I'm really proud of you for coming here, for doing this, and I'm grateful.
Thank you. You have no. People have called. I've seen the posts, like responses to my columns, where they've called me a hero, and y'all have done the same. But to reiterate, I'm not a hero. You guys are, because we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for y'all. Like, this would continue to manifest inside of me, and I would probably never figure out how to ever have a healthy relationship and deal with these things that, I locked it in a box, took that box, locked it in a closet, took both of those keys, and I threw them away. And instead, now I'm taking a sledgehammer and just breaking them open and
hell yeah, you are.
Sledgehammer, man. I'm going full at it.
It's an honor to be here with you on this journey and to know you and to continue to be here.
And same for me, like towards you and all of you. So, love you.
Love you too.